He's actually a giant bear, huge paws, a massive head, and a muscular 115-pound body. But somehow, he still believes he's a dog. He'll sit directly on your feet, like a Great Dane trying to be a lapdog, rest his heavy chin on your knee with a dramatic sigh, and follow you room to room, always a few clumsy steps behind. We named him Bruno, not after the singer or the movie character, but after a farmer we met in the hills of British Columbia. Gruff voice, kind eyes, and a stubborn way of showing love. That's exactly how this bear is. He's not graceful, not elegant, but the way he leans into you when he wants attention, or does his strange full-body wag when we come home, it's pure devotion. My husband Theo and I live just outside the town of Clearwater, in a log cabin surrounded by forest, snow, and more sky than any city heart could imagine. We moved here 2 years ago, after both of us burned out working endless shifts at a downtown animal hospital in Vancouver. Late nights, loud sirens, constant concrete. We needed quiet. We needed green. We didn't know we needed a bear. Bruno came into our lives the way wild things often do, broken, hidden, and not expecting anyone to care. We were hiking near Hemp Creek Falls when we found him. At first, we thought he was a pile of fur or maybe an old sleeping bag someone dumped. But then he moved. Just slightly. His back leg twitched, and he made this noise. Not a growl, not a cry. A sound like giving up. We called the ranger station. They said a young bear had likely been hit by a vehicle or caught in a snare trap. No one had claimed responsibility, but reports of illegal trapping in the area weren't new. It was late afternoon when the ranger finally arrived, and in that time, Theo sat beside the bear, not touching him, just talking softly. Bruno never looked at him. But he didn't move away either. They brought him to a small wildlife rehab center an hour out, and for 3 weeks we checked in. We brought jars of salmon broth, warm blankets, and music on an old portable speaker. And one day, Bruno stood, not tall, not proud, just shaky and confused and alive. When the center contacted us to say he needed a foster, someone to help him recover without too much stress, we hesitated. But then we looked at each other. And the answer was already there. Bruno didn't come in like a storm, he came in like a shadow, quiet, watchful. At first, he stayed in the sunroom, curled up near the wood stove. We left the doors open. He could have left any time, but he didn't. He watched Theo, followed him with his eyes, then his body, step by step. When Theo made coffee, Bruno sat just outside the kitchen arch. When Theo brushed his teeth, Bruno was in the hallway. He'd nose at Theo's sock drawer, paw at the edge of his flannel. It was like he was imprinting. The vet said it wasn't uncommon for orphaned animals to latch onto their caregivers. But this wasn't just latching. This was loyalty, unshakable. Bruno learned to open doors, but never closed them. He'd sprawl across the bed like he paid the mortgage. We had to replace 2 couches in the first month. He doesn't realize his own strength. He thinks snuggling means pressing his whole body against you until your bones click. But he also licks Theo's face in the morning to wake him up, like a Labrador. He even makes this chuffing sound, like a woof trying to form. We built him a harness, reinforced and padded, and started taking him on walks. Or rather, he took us. People in town stared. Some ran, some whispered, but others waved, kids especially. They'd point and laugh when Bruno tried to chase sticks or rolled in the snow like a pup with zero dignity. He's clumsy. He knocks over flower pots, pulls down curtains, once dragged the vacuum across the room because it made a noise he didn't like. He tries to fetch, but ends up eating the stick. Theo just laughs and shakes his head. But he's not all chaos. There's something deeply intuitive about him. If one of us is upset, Bruno knows. He'll press his forehead to your chest, gently. No noise, just pressure, like a weighted blanket of empathy. One day, Theo came home late, after getting stuck in town helping someone with a stranded dog. He looked tired, shoulders low, eyes hollow. Bruno didn't rush him like usual. He walked up slowly, touched Theo's hand with his nose, then lay down at his feet, belly up, paws in the air like a puppy asking to play. It worked. Theo knelt down, laughed for the first time all week, and hugged that giant beast like he was something small and soft. Bruno has a thing for pillows. He hoards them. Every couch cushion, bed pillow, even a decorative one from our guest room that says, "Live, laugh, love." He drags them to the fireplace and sleeps on them like royalty. His snores shake the window panes, but nothing prepared us for what happened last December. Theo had to fly to Kamloops for a veterinary conference, just a weekend. But he packed quietly, not wanting to stress Bruno. Still, Bruno sensed something. He paced the hallway, sniffed Theo's boots. When the car pulled away that morning, Bruno stood at the edge of the porch for over an hour. Didn't sit, didn't blink, just stared down the driveway like the trees might return Theo if he looked hard enough. That night, he wouldn't eat. He refused his favorite honey crackers, even turned away from the fire. I tried everything, walks, toys, brushing. But Bruno just lay there, head on his paws, eyes dull. I found him later curled up on Theo's flannel shirt, the one he always left draped over the chair. Bruno had dragged it down, curled around it like it was warm. The next day, I had to stop by the ranger station to drop off some trail cameras. Bruno came with me, like always. He walked slow. Didn't pull, no tail wag, just heavy steps and silence. The building was empty, just me and the echo of boots on floorboards. We took the elevator up. Bruno never liked it, but he tolerated it. That day, he froze, stiff, ears alert. Then, as the doors opened, he bolted, not in fear, in recognition. Theo was there, just stepped out of a staff office, coffee in hand, and Bruno launched himself forward with the most ridiculous sound, a half growl, half yelp, full of joy. He nearly tackled Theo. All 115 pounds of fur and muscle wrapped around the man's legs like a dog greeting his soldier after deployment. I stood back and watched as Theo dropped the coffee, dropped everything, and held Bruno like someone who had waited years. And Bruno, well, he did his full body wag, tongue lolling out, nose pressed to Theo's neck. Since then, Bruno has only gotten more dramatic. He knows when Theo's thinking about leaving. Starts circling the duffel bag, sits on the suitcase. One time, he hid all Theo's socks. We found them buried under the porch in a pile like offerings. People still ask how we keep a bear in the house. The truth is we don't. He stays because he wants to. Every door's been open, the gate too. Sometimes I've forgotten a window. Bruno could leave any time, but he doesn't. He watches birds through the window like they're poetry. He lays on the porch in the sun, paws crossed like he's pondering life. When deer pass the edge of the yard, he lifts his head, sniffs, then closes his eyes. No chasing, no growling, just calm. Theo swears Bruno smiles in his sleep. I think he's right. We never planned for this life. We didn't write adopt bear on any to-do list. But Bruno happened. He broke in like sunlight through fog, quiet, slow, transformative. When I watch him now, curled up on the rug, Theo's sock still clutched between his paws, I think about that first day, the broken thing under a tree, the noise of surrender, and I think of everything between that and now, the healing, the mischief, the devotion. Bruno still chews the corner of the couch, still drags sticks into the house like treasures, still greets Theo with a goofy bark huff sound that no scientist has explained, but he's also the calm in our storm, the warmth in our winter, not a pet, not a project, but a presence. If you ask me what it's like living with a bear who thinks he's a dog, I'll tell you this. It's loud, it's weird, it's inconvenient, but it's also the most honest form of love I've ever seen. And when Bruno curls up at the foot of our bed, lets out a sigh, and twitches in his sleep like he's chasing dreams, maybe sticks, maybe memories, I know without a doubt, this wild, powerful creature chose us. That choice? It changed everything. We didn't know what to feed him at first. I remember standing in the kitchen with 2 bags, one of kibble, one of salmon, and just staring at them like they were ancient relics from incompatible worlds. Bruno solved it for us. He walked up, snatched the salmon in one giant paw, and lumbered off toward the porch like he'd won some unspoken bet. We laughed for 10 straight minutes. That became the first of many Bruno wins moments. He wasn't easy. No good love ever is. He growled in his sleep. He tore open the pantry more than once. He once tried to bury a whole watermelon in the flower bed and got furious when it wouldn't stay hidden. But he also leaned his giant head into my chest the day I couldn't stop crying. He sat beside Theo through 2 nights of fever, watching every breath. He watched over us like he knew exactly what we needed, what he had needed once. There were days I'd forget he was a bear at all. Days when he'd chase the garden hose, or bark at the mail truck, or roll over for belly rubs. But then I'd catch him at twilight, sitting so still on the edge of the yard, watching the forest like it had called his name. And I'd remember, part of him belonged to a wilder place. We just happened to be the soft middle of his journey, and maybe that's why he stayed. Sometimes I wonder if Bruno remembers where he came from, if the scent of pine or the flap of a bird's wing ever stirs something deeper. But he never tries to run. He never wanders far. He stays close, closer than most people I've known. Like he understands the quiet agreement between us. We found each other in pieces, and we stayed to build something whole. He has favorite songs. I don't say that lightly. Bruno likes music. When Theo plays piano, Bruno comes and rests his chin on the keys like it's his way of harmonizing. If I hum while I cook, he hums back. Well, groans, really, but there's rhythm in it. Once, Theo played a lullaby on repeat, and Bruno curled up on the couch and didn't move for hours. We tried turning it off. He sat up and stared. We turned it back on. He sighed and went back to sleep. You learn these things when you share space with a creature like Bruno. You learn patience. You learn not to leave raw chicken unattended. You learn to live a little slower, to sit longer, to listen better. There's a spot under his chin, just below the jawline, where the fur is soft and hauled, like spun wool. That's where Theo pets him when he's scared. It calms them both. I've seen it work. I've seen thunderstorms pass and not even rattle the windows of our little house, because Bruno was there, grounded like an oak tree with eyes. There was one night, I think about it often, when Theo had a nightmare. One of those old ones that still slip in from time to time, reminders of a life before all this. He screamed. I ran to the room, but Bruno was faster. He was already there, paw on the blanket, nose against Theo's cheek. No growl, no bark, just presence, just warmth. Theo quieted like a wave settling back into the sea. We sat there, all three of us, until morning. I used to wonder what people meant when they said they found home. I thought maybe it was just a word for the place you sleep, or the people who know your middle name. But now I think home is a scent, a rhythm, a weight at the foot of your bed that tells you you're not alone. It's the sound of claws clicking on wood floors. It's the thud of a 115-pound body flopping onto the couch. It's the ridiculous bark huff that only one creature in the world can make. It's Bruno. People still ask questions. Where did he come from? Why didn't we turn him in? Is he dangerous? Is this legal? I don't always have good answers. All I know is he came to us not as a bear, but as a question, a riddle in fur. And slowly, with time and love and more than a few chewed-up shoes, he gave us the answer. We never meant to become a family like this, but we did. And every morning, when I open the back door and Bruno bolts outside to bark at absolutely nothing, I'm reminded, this life is strange, yes, but it's also beautiful. Built on instinct and accidents and unexpected loyalty. And every night when he comes back in smelling like rain and dirt and wild dreams, curls up next to Theo, and lets out a sigh so deep it feels like it comes from the center of the earth, I know what I believe now. We didn't plan for him, but he chose us. And that choice, it changed everything.